The San Jose State women's volleyball court sits empty, and it will remain that way Thursday because the University of Wyoming forfeited its second match against the Spartans this season. It's the sixth match this season that opponents have forfeited, contributing to 11 total conference wins for SJSU so far. The forfeiture stem from unconfirmed claims by a Spartans volleyball player that one of her own teammates is transgender, and now that player, co-captain Brooke Slusser, along with suspended associate head coach Melissa Batie-Smoose and 10 other college volleyball players are suing over Title IX and First Amendment violations. Slusser spoke about the controversy exclusively on Fox News, saying the university is allowing one player to cause issues.
I mean, it's sad that the school still chooses to prioritize one man's needs over an entire team and be willing to get rid of half of our season because of it. So it's amazing that other teams in the conference can stand up and just say, no, we're not doing this.
The Mountain West Conference and Commissioner Gloria Navarez, the CSU Board of Trustees, SJSU head volleyball coach Todd Kress, and other SJSU officials are the defendants in the case. Court documents allege that the SJSU athlete is getting preferential treatment and that the concerns and feelings of others on the team are not being heard. The lawsuit claims that during an April meeting, SJSU officials told team members to not speak about the situation or, quote, it will go badly for team members. The suit contends that the volleyball player plaintiffs claim is transgender should not be eligible for the team, and they are calling on the conference to ban that athlete from the upcoming Mountain West Conference tournament, to reverse the losses for teams that forfeited, and to strip all wins from SJSU's record. Slusser is also part of another lawsuit against the NCAA related to this issue. Menlo College political scientist Melissa Michelson expects the results of the presidential election will only embolden more action of this kind.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So there was an emergency hearing in Denver, Colorado for the Mountain West Conference lawsuit. Because remember, the plaintiffs have sought an injunction that will affect the upcoming Mountain West tournament. They want SJSU disqualified because they have a male player on the team. They want records to be adjusted. They want places in the tournament to be adjusted. There are teams who are not going to make this tournament because they've been pushed back due to the presence of SJSU. They're saying that this team needs to be disqualified for having a male player on a women's volleyball team, and adjustments need to be made. And there's only a few days. And of course, the issue of pronouns came up during this meeting. So let's take a look. After a 3-hour emergency hearing at the Byron G. Rogers United States Courthouse in downtown Denver, the Honorable S. Cato Cruz told counsel for all allowed parties that he would need time to make a ruling, but that he would do so in a timely fashion. Lawyers for the plaintiffs made their arguments for why Judge Cruz should grant injunctive relief prior to the start of the Mountain West Conference volleyball tournament on Wednesday. So the judge really doesn't have much time, and there is a lot to consider. But at the end of the day, it should all come down to whether a male has the right to compete in a women's tournament. 12 women are suing the Mountain West Conference, California State University system, and multiple San Jose State employees over the inclusion of transgender volleyball player Blair Fleming on the SJSU's women's volleyball team. The emergency hearing was set to rule on a motion brought forward by the plaintiffs, as well as a motion to intervene filed by Utah State University. Judge Cruz, a Joe Biden nominee, who was confirmed by the Democrat-controlled Senate in February in a party line vote, ruled on Wednesday that the hearing would not include witness testimony, despite objections from the plaintiffs' counsel. Now, I don't know if that's because of time. The tournament does start on Wednesday, so maybe it's to speed things up, but I would think it's very disappointing. So only oral arguments were presented by both sides. So lawyers for the plaintiffs are seeking an injunction to disqualify San Jose State from competing in the Mountain West Conference tournament, disqualify Blair Fleming from competing in the conference tournament, and or remove the losses from the records of teams who protested by not competing against SJSU, and subsequently remove the wins from SJSU. Central to the Thursday's argument was the conference's so-called transgender participation policy, which established the basis for the forfeitures that have swept through conference play as teams refused to compete against SJSU and Fleming. The plaintiffs argued that the Mountain West Conference violated its own bylaws by adding the TPP to the conference handbook in September without having a formal vote by conference board members. So remember, the plaintiffs were saying that they rushed through this policy to send a clear message to the schools not to forfeit. So the lawyers did ask the Mountain West Conference why they didn't follow the proper procedure in adding the policy to the handbook. They admitted that no, there was no vote, they didn't follow that procedure, but that was members of staff who decided to add the policy. It was simply a staff decision to add the policy in September, coincidentally, when the forfeits started. So this policy blindsided the female athletes, it blindsided the schools who wanted to forfeit. And clearly it was to send a message. If you forfeit, you're violating this policy. And what happens when you violate policies? You're breaking the rules. It jeopardizes your participation in the conference. It jeopardizes your good standing in the conference. And if they can just add policies when they feel like it, what other policies are there? What other policies are these girls going to be held to that they're not even aware of? It should all be in the handbook. So the girls know what they're signing up for. The girls know exactly what they're getting themselves into. Turns out they're playing women's volleyball, but now have to compete against a male athlete. Turns out that if they object to that, there's now policies saying that it's wrong to object to that. There's now policies saying that you can't forfeit, you can't refuse to play against a male athlete, at least not without repercussions. A lawyer for Utah State University argued that while the school voted to adopt the TPP in 2022, they didn't realize the harm the policy would cause until the school forfeited a volleyball match against SJSU and Blair Fleming this season. Okay, so Utah State, they did vote for this policy initially. And the Mountain West Conference is basically saying that this has been there since 2022. So they're claiming they didn't blindside anybody, although it wasn't in the handbook.
Those teams claim the athletes' presence raises concerns about fairness in women's competition. San Jose State, however, says the athlete meets all eligibility rules set by the NCAA and the Mountain West Conference. The Mountain West Conference commissioner expressed concern, calling the situation heartbreaking, adding that it's taking a toll on all athletes involved. Republican governors in states like Idaho, Utah, and Wyoming are voicing support for the forfeits, arguing that the inclusion of transgender athletes disrupts the competitive fairness in women's sports. Meanwhile, San Jose State's assistant volleyball coach was suspended after publicly questioning the inclusion of transgender athletes in women's sports.
We need more and more people to do this and fight this fight, because women's sports, as we know it right now, will be forever changed.
The suspension prompted the team's co-captain to speak out against trans athletes in women's sports.
This has so much more to do with me, my situation, my team's situation. It has everything to do with just stopping it for the future of girls and women's sports. Because like I said, women's sports might be gone at the end of the day if we just keep going the way that we're going.
But some fans of the team are showing support for transgender athletes' right to play.
Those people deserve as much as the rest of us to be able to play sports and be able to represent their universities.
San Jose State's head coach says the ongoing controversy and the forfeits have been emotionally challenging for this team.
The student athletes in particular received a lot of hate mail, DMs, voicemail. Some of it, to be honest, is disgusting. I'm more worried about our student athletes and what they receive and how that's affecting their mental health, to be quite honest.
With the Mountain West tournament closing in, the forfeits are adding pressure. Teams that opt out receive official losses, which could impact their eligibility for the tournament.
While the judge stated that he would rule on the motion for injunction and the motion to intervene in a timely fashion, he did make a few procedural rulings at the start of the hearing. So here is where we talk about the pronouns and, how people are expected to conduct themselves when it comes to referring to Fleming. Cruz declared that he would use she/her pronouns when talking about Blair Fleming based on his research into the case, but didn't demand that lawyers for the plaintiffs use this language as part of their case. So that's good. He also stated that his use of those pronouns should not be read as an acknowledgement that he had made a decision on Fleming's gender for the purposes of the lawsuit. Again, that's good. That's good to know. He is a Biden appointee, but let's hope for the best that our court systems can exercise true objectivity when it comes to these matters. To be clear, the judge stated that he will use she, her pronouns, but counsel is free to use whatever pronouns they would like to use. And that is a good sign, because if he insisted that they use she, her pronouns, that would kind of indicate that the judge is infected by the woke mind virus and is forcing people to use pronouns against their will. So a lawyer for the California State University system believes that Fleming's name should not be used in these legal documents, in these proceedings, that a pseudonym should be used instead. Because of course, the male athlete is always the vulnerable one, is always the one who needs to be protected, while the female athletes receive death threats, while the female athletes have their First Amendment rights infringed upon, and allegedly have people plot against them, allegedly have people plot to spike them in the face, all because they object to competing against a male athlete. So the judge said, while the court is not insensitive to the privacy issues, the defendants have essentially affirmed there was a transgender player on the SJSU volleyball team, because they're still trying to act like, ooh, we can't out this person. We are yet to confirm if we have a transgender player on the team. How do you know that this person is even transgender? How dare you refer to this person as being transgender when that hasn't been confirmed? Well, no, it's as clear as day that this person is transgender, and that's why this whole thing is going on in the first place, and we can stop the pretense. However, the judge also says that he sees no need to use Blair Fleming's name since all parties are aware of who the lawsuit is centered around. That's true. Now look, I keep saying, this is a Biden appointed nominee, but so far, the judge does seem to be reasonable. The judge does seem to be operating under objectivity rather than pushing, an agenda. And that's the judge's job. Regardless of their political views, regardless of their personal opinion, they have to remain objective. That is their job. And we should believe that we are able to come across these sort of judges in our legal system. Otherwise, what hope would there be? And I would hope that judges who are appointed by Trump also exercise objectivity when it comes to these matters. Again, because the integrity of our legal system depends on it. I don't think either side should show bias of any kind. So there were people outside the courtroom supporting the female athletes. The founder of XXXY Athletics, Jen Say, was there. This court case is backed by icons. I'm glad to see they're being supported, they're being cheered on, because this must be very scary. It's very intimidating going to court over this. So it's going to be very interesting to follow this case. It's important to remember that while the breadth of the lawsuit surrounds allegations that the defendants violated Title IX and/or the First Amendment, the emergency hearing focused only on the two motions brought forward. While the lawyers for the plaintiffs made some of their arguments about the alleged Title IX and First Amendment violation, and defense attorneys rebutted those claims, that was not the focus of the hearing. So because the plaintiffs want adjustments to be made in time for the tournament, that had to be the focus. Are the scores going to be adjusted? Are the forfeits going to count as the losses still? Is SJSU wins going to be stripped from them? Are they going to be disqualified from competing in the tournament? All of these questions have to be addressed. So while the Title IX and First Amendment portions of the lawsuit could take a while to play out, the judge clearly understands that the motions before him require a relatively prompt decision. So the good news is that key aspects of this case will be decided by Wednesday. The judge has promised to make the decisions in a timely manner. That at least the female athletes, the plaintiffs, do not have to wait long. And at least we don't have to wait long. So we'll be following this closely. So let me know what you think. What do you think of their chances? At least of their chances to get these forfeits not counted as losses. Perhaps SJSU being disqualified. What do you think are the chances of that? So thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.